We are in a wonderfully weird place today. Apparently, there was a contest a few hundred yards from here late into the snowy night last night, and therefore Father Brian, our beloved and caring rector of the Basilica, said, well, I guess we'd better schedule an 8 a.m. Mass in addition to the usual 10 and noon, because with all these people here celebrating this unusual ritual over there, they're going to want to come and celebrate another ritual over here. And we have, as expected, an overflow crowd to pray for the ongoing success of Notre Dame's defense. It's not like this everywhere. If you've had the privilege, as I've had because of my work for Notre Dame and my time as a student, to travel around Europe, one of the things you realize is that after going to a few cities, you can't tell one cathedral from the next, because basically what you do is plan visits to old churches between meals, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. I'm fortunate that my work, such as I get to call it for Notre Dame, has taken me to Rome several times, and I've gotten to visit the Basilica of St. John Lateran, the mother church of Rome and of all of us as Catholics. And the first time I walked in, the monumentality of the statuary, the sheer size of the place, you think, how could anyone not be a Catholic? And then you take in the monumentality of the statuary and the sheer size of the place, and you think, maybe the Protestants had a point. It can be a bit much. Just as the temple was a bit much for God's people, Israel, and Jesus had to say, here we have this place that is set apart, and we have managed to bring our sin even here. Our lives can be complicated that way. I said that not every place is like this. Not every place had to add masses today because of visitors, but we get to do that at Notre Dame. But we should think for a little bit about some other places, if only to realize how blessed we are to be in such a community. A great poet of the 20th century in Britain was named Philip Larkin. He was an avowed atheist, and he had an ambiguously titled poem called Church Going, about his going to a church. Once I am sure there is nothing going on, I step inside, letting the door thud shut. Another church, matting, seats, and stone, and little books, sprawlings of flowers cut for Sunday, brownish now, some brass and stuff up at the holy end, the small, neat organ, and a tense, musty, unignorable silence, brewed God knows how long. Hatless, I take off my cycle clips in awkward reverence, move forward and run my hand along the font. From where I stand, the roof looks almost new, cleaned or restored. Someone would know. I don't. Mounting the lectern, I peruse a few hectoring large-scale verses and pronounce "here endeth" much more loudly than I'd meant. The echoes snicker briefly. Back at the door, I sign the book, donate an Irish sixpence, reflect the place was not worth stopping for. Yet stop I did. In fact, I often do, and always end much at a loss like this, wondering what to look for. Wondering, too, when churches fall completely out of use, what shall we turn them into? If we shall keep a few cathedrals chronically on show, their parchment plate and pyx in locked cases, and let the rest rent free to rain and sheep? Shall we avoid them as unlucky places? Or after dark will dubious women come to make their children touch a particular stone, pick simples for a cancer, or on some advised night see walking a dead one? Power of some sort or other will go on in games and riddles seemingly at random, but superstition, like belief, must die. And what remains when disbelief has gone? Grass, weedy pavement, brambles, buttress, sky, a shape less recognizable each week, a purpose more obscure. I wonder who will be the last, the very last, to seek this place for what it was. One of the crew that tap and jot and know what Rudolphs were, some ruin bibber randy for antique, or a Christmas addict counting on a whiff of gown and bands and organ pipes and myrrh. Or will he be my representative, bored, uninformed, knowing the ghostly silt dispersed, yet tending to this cross of ground through suburb scrub because it held unspilt so long and equably what since is found only in separation, marriage, and birth and death and thoughts of these, for which was built this special shell. For though I've no idea what this acoustered, frosty barn is worth, it pleases me to stand in silence here. A serious house on serious earth it is, in whose blent air all our compassions meet, are recognized and robed as destinies. And that much never can be obsolete, since someone will forever be surprising a hunger in himself for something more serious and gravitating with it to this ground, which he once heard was proper to grow wise in, if only that so many dead lie round. Thank you for indulging me in Philip Larkin's not too short poem, Church Going. It's extraordinary, I think. It might as well just as much be about this church in which we are assembled, a place where our most profound destinies and comings and goings meet, baptisms and weddings and funerals, day after day and year after year, where we're not sure exactly what to make of it, but we know this might be a place to grow wise in. There are priests who every year will say to Father Brian or to me, I think they must have had worse seminary education than we did, what's with this feast of a building, the Lateran Basilica, and how could it supplant a Sunday? God works with us not as brains floating in the air, but as his embodied creatures, his sons and daughters. We work in sign and symbol and concreteness. Jesus makes himself really present under the signs of bread and wine at every Mass because we need that tangible sense of his presence. Each of us is called to holiness, and the church has long built places set apart. That's what holy means. The Lateran Basilica is the oldest and most privileged of these major churches of Rome, dating back in its spot to the 4th century, to the Emperor Constantine. And it stands as a symbol for all of us of the churches around the world. Of course, all of us assembled here are more the church than this basilica, but we should be grateful that God has gifted us with architects and artisans, with people who are willing in poor neighborhoods of New York City, where so many beautiful churches stand that were built with the pennies of migrants because they wanted the nicest room in their neighborhood not to be their living room individually, but our living room collectively. And so churches like Holy Trinity at 82nd and Broadway, built at the turn of the last century by very poor Irish and German immigrants, and where I got to live going to law school, continue to be holy places where people return and know and have an inkling, even as the atheist poet Philip Larkin did, that something about this place makes it somewhere to grow wise in, where the word of God will be proclaimed, where we'll be sitting and looking at the backs of heads of people we've never known, but maybe just seeing them gives us the encouragement, I'm not the only one. Still seeking, still listening, still open to receiving the living water that comes to us through the church's font of sacraments, which we celebrate in acoustered, frosty barns like this one. We are in a delightfully strange place at the University of Notre Dame. It's as if we are out of time. I don't mean we've run out of time, though I am aware there's a clock here telling me that I'm on TV and we've got to be quick. It's as if we step out of time on these strange football weekends, when we're surrounded by people who say they're coming here to see how many points we will beat the Naval Academy by. It was enough. But in fact, they remember, you know what? My aunt asked me to light a candle for her at the grotto. Where is this grotto, Father? And they go down to the grotto, and it's near this basilica. And they say, why are people walking in there at 11 in the morning? Oh, there are confessions now. And we need 4 confessors on a football Friday. Because somebody lighting a candle for his aunt realizes, I haven't been to confession in 32 years. But if these students are going, maybe I should go back and avail of that living water once again. This morning, as we celebrate our mother church, as it were, in Rome, the Lateran Basilica, for all of its strangeness and the ways in which it maybe puffs up our ego more than it should, but lifts our soul to something bigger than ourselves, exactly as it should, we do so here as well. We give thanks for the architects and the artisans, for those who preached to us as children, for those who preach to us now, for those who help us to encounter God's mercy, some bit of hope, something that lifts the soul and draws us closer to one another as well. This we celebrate. It is God's living water. It is strange, but it is strange in exactly the right way. It is wonderful, and it opens us to wonder. And we give thanks for the Lateran Basilica and for the small chapels and the many ways in which God opens to us the strange mystery and the ordinary miracle that he speaks to us still.